Now let's begin with the opening ceremony. Now I'd like to welcome Mr. Tae-geun Chung, Head of UNPOC, with his welcoming remarks. Please welcome him with a round of applause. Prior to joining the United Nations, Mr. Chung was the Vice Minister of the Ministry of the Interior and Safety for the Republic of Korea.
Dear students, distinguished guests, colleagues from UN agencies, I'm very happy to be here with you on behalf of the United Nations Project Office on Governance, and I welcome you to the second UNPOC speech contest, Youth Engagement in the SDG Implementation. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the finalists who will share their innovative and inspirational ideas with us today. I had the chance to look through the presentation materials, and you have indeed proved that the youth are our future. Also, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to our co-organizers, the Ministry of Interior and Safety, the Ministry of Environment, Incheon Metropolitan City Government, for your excellent support. From respective organizations, Mr. Im Jung-taek, Director General for International Cooperation Division, the Ministry of Interior and Safety, and Mr. Park Sang-jin, Ambassador for International Relations of Incheon Metropolitan City. They are here in attendance with us. Thank you for your valuable support and participation. Why don't you give a big hand to them for our heartfelt welcome. I assume that some of you might not have heard about UNPOC before, so with your permission, let me briefly introduce UNPOC. UNPOC functions under general auspice of the Division for Public Institutions and Public Digital Government of the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. Since its inception in 2006, UNPOC has conducted innovative research and capacity building activities for developing countries in Asia and the Pacific region. It also continually disseminates global and national best practices on participatory, transparent, effective governance. In particular, in the era of Sustainable Development Goals, UNPOC currently focuses on building effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions for advancing implementation of Sustainable Development Goals. Last year, an inaugural UNPOC contest was successfully completed, while the participants presented innovative ideas to achieve SDGs in accordance with the young. The first contest was initiated to expand domestic activities of UNPOC with activities targeting developing countries in Asia and the Pacific and Eastern Africa. As you can see this backdrop, the UNPOC contest, Let's Talk About SDGs, is planned as an annual flagship event of UNPOC. Dear students, not only is this an opportunity for UNPOC to promote itself and SDGs, but it also provides a great platforms for young people to contribute their ideas to the international community through the UN by being recognized as key drivers for a sustainable, peaceful, and inclusive world. The target year of SDGs is 2030, and today's youth will be the most active generation in the year 2030. In other words, the future is yours. Therefore, it is your responsibility to know better what today's world is functioning and facing in terms of opportunities and challenges. It is your mission to find your own way, own job in building a hopeful and effective future. Finally, it is your privilege to actively engage yourselves and share the fruitful outcomes. I very much look forward to your presentation today, and I hope today can serve as a meaningful day, all of us and you participants. Thank you very much.
Now, I'd like to invite Mr. Jung Taek Lim, Director General for International Cooperation Division, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety, for his congratulatory remarks. Please welcome him with a big hand.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Jung Jae-geun, Head of UN Project Office in Governance, and Mr. Park Sang-jin, Ambassador for International Relations of the Incheon Metropolitan City, students participating in the contest today, and parents and guests. It's my great pleasure to be here with you. I am Jung Taek Lim, Director General for International Cooperation Bureau, Ministry of Interior and Safety. Let me begin by offering my sincere congratulations on the second UNPOC speech contest, following the successful completion of the first contest last year. As this year's theme tells us, we gathered here today to share a passion for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs are the declaration and pledge embracing the goals we all should implement by 2030 for sustainable life in every field, including politics, economy, society, and the environment. The whole international community, including the UN, has been making all-out efforts to achieve the SDGs. In line with this global trend, the Republic of Korea is also striving to implement the SDGs at home while actively supporting countries that face difficulties in their implementation. UNPOC, established in 2006 as a UN project office in Korea, has played a key role in such global efforts. Through unwavering commitment, UNPOC has been successfully raising awareness on the SDGs and facilitating the implementation, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. Taking this opportunity, I would like to assure you the Ministry of the Interior and Safety will continuously provide the active support, not only for this speech contest, but also for every program and activity of the UNPOC. I sincerely hope that the two agencies can develop a long-lasting partnership through continued communication and cooperation. Before closing, I wish to share with you the meanings of today's event. Above all, it will serve as a valuable opportunity for the youth, who are the future of our humanity, to better understand the SDGs. And the event will help them suggest creative ideas for achieving the goals, thereby contributing to the improvement of the quality of life for the older people in the international community. Last but not least, I would like to thank Mr. Jung and the staff of UNPOC for all their efforts to make today's event possible. I would also like to congratulate all the students who successfully made it to the final round through hard work. I hope everyone will have a good chance to present creative and innovative ideas to making the most of your abilities with no regrets. Thank you for your attention.
Now, I'd like to invite Mr. Sang-jin Park, Ambassador for International Relations, Incheon Metropolitan City, for his congratulatory remarks. Please give him a big hand.
Honorable Mr. Jung Jae-geun, Head of United Nations Project Office on Governance, and Mr. Im Jung-taek, International Administrative Cooperation Bureau, Minister of Interior and Safety, and our promising participants across the country. and young students, and ladies and gentlemen. I am greatly honored to be here to deliver my congratulatory message on this wonderful occasion on behalf of Honorable Mayor of Incheon City, Mr. Bang Nam-chun. First of all, I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude to Mr. Jung Jae-geun, head of UNPOC, and his excellent team for organizing this meaningful event. Secondly, I sincerely congratulate all participants today who got through the first stage, and also I warmly welcome our honorable citizen of Incheon. I understand the theme of today's contest is youth engagement in the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal implementation. That theme is now a globally hot issue and holds a lot of significance to the world, including Incheon. Incheon City, specifically Songdo, hosts 15 international organizations, including UNPOC, GCF, and World Bank Group Korea office. Now, the number of staff working in those organizations is over 400. As all of you are aware, Songdo of Incheon is ever growing into a dynamic global city. In this sense, we are very delighted to see our young students challenge themselves to explore the world ahead of them. Let me finish my remarks by quoting one research result in the United States. Number one fear to the American citizen is public speaking, rather than disease or accident. That means public speaking is one of the most hardest things, only to avoid it if possible. So even the world-renowned politician and seasoned diplomat are also under constant stress about speech to the last moment. So I'd like to ask all the contestants to relax yourself and just do it in the same way how you practice at your home. So I really wish all our challengers and our dear audience enjoy today's event. Thank you. Carpe diem.
Now, the high school student session will begin. So, during your presentation, please check the clock in front of you and finish your presentation on time. So the first presenter is Han Bin Sun from Group A.
Today, the world changes by small hands. Today, the new change begins that everyone will achieve. Meanwhile, our society has the enormous growth that has no worries, which were seriously discussed earlier. Among them, there definitely will be the elevated status of countries and large nation capital. However, there also exist the victims counting the cost of their success instead. To make sure that everyone lives well, UN yearly set the 17 goals. Comparing SDGs to MDGs, the number and content became increased and more specified. In the goals, she could find out something interesting. In the 8th goal, the informal one is a global partnership for development. And here, there is the 17th goal in latter one, which is partnership for the goals. Even though they are the same goal, but the range became wider. Looking for the reason for a long time, she finally got the answer. That is the importance of local government participants in UN SDGs implementation. Then why? Some people think and says, well, our society is so low, and we are very busy in surviving this society. Why do we have to carry the international problems? Let me talk about the reason specifically. What we read in the sea, the sea became polluted. The polluted sea causes the global warming and accompanied climate change. The heat melted the glaciers in polar regions, and as you can see, the polar bear on the small mass of ice. What we done, the characteristic causes the negative effect with close relationship. Is that all? Nope. The constantly evolved epidemics causes killed kids in starvation and in sanitary environment. The gender inequality changes the women and LGBT people carrying the torch for their own rights and freedom. Lastly, unexpected attacks and wars by the world anxieties. So, do you still think that they are just the only international problems? No. The world is connected, the country is connected, and the cities are connected. In the process of deciding UN goals, they were decided by the convergence of public opinions. So we can never ignore the importance of participants in personal dimensions. To find the measure for successful implementation, she could find out the factors of sustainable development, which is their satisfied economic, social, and environmental parts. And following them, she defined the roles of local governments. They are divided into 3 sections, which is convergence of opinions, foundation of departments and groups, lastly, development of new programs. So she devised the new implementation system with 5 steps. The first step, we need the new department for specifically working according to the city's features. However, also the budgets are important. So, securing the budget is so difficult because of the complicated process. So she could find out the organization ICRI, which helps cities and society implement SDGs. And step 2. Step 2 is devised the think of the convergence of various public opinions. So through the group, we can make the current use of our UN SDGs information and spread them using social media like Facebook. The step 3 is development new programs using cities or features regardless of UN SDGs like that. And the fourth one is openness to expo in the specific city in the countries.
Time is up. So yeah, we have to wrap
Okay,
it
I will finish.
One sentence.
Okay, thank you. In other years, applying the Festival of Global Action. Last one is participants of city which has the best program in that expo to the Festival of Global Action for sharing their fresh ideas.
So we have to stop you here.
So
Sorry.
more we think what the world changes. Thank you.
Okay. So next presenter, Ms. Yu Jong-an.
Welcome everyone and thank you for your attendance. Today, I'm standing here to talk about the measures for the federal government to actively take part in SDGs implementation. Before actually getting into the main point, I divided the SDGs into 4 categories, which are necessities in life, increase in life quality, development in economics and cooperation, and finally protecting nature. And from the coming up slide, I'd like to introduce the cases of these SDGs being violated. First of all, when floodings, droughts, earthquakes, and tsunami occur, the basic necessities in life, such as food, clothes, and houses are all destroyed and the nature is damaged as well. Looking at the case of 2011 Japan tsunami, there was a failure in dealing with the Fukushima nuclear power plant explosion despite fast coping with the earthquake. Next, in case of the diseases and epidemics, the basic necessities are taken away and the life quality decreases at the same time. Looking at the case of 2018 Ebola outbreak, the government's reaction improved greatly compared to the first case. However, the emergence of variated germs made vaccination not work in all cases. The terror and dictatorship diminishes the economic development and cooperation, while it also decreases the life quality of many people. Looking at the case of 2015 Paris attack conducted by the ISIS, the government successfully joined forces with the Belgian government in dealing and seeking out the terrorists, but failed to inspect the potential terrorists warned by the British institution beforehand in order to prevent it from actually happening. The last one is about the war. Any kind of war, including the civil war, the international war, the inner war, and even the potential nuclear war, can damage the nature and badly affect the economic status and cooperation between the countries. So, now I'd like to sum up the measures which could be conducted in each situation, starting from the natural disaster. The first one is to construct a seismic observatory center in regions of potential danger, and also a need for a special agency or a department constructed in every region regarding the disaster. There's a need for every single federal government to be able to deal with the situation because no one really knows when the disaster will come. Without the ability to autonomously deal with this matter, tragic situations such as the Seoul disaster will repeat. To prevent the diseases and epidemics from happening again, I urge the need for the environment in those developing countries to be greatly improved. Funds could be sent, volunteers could be sent through sister country system, and even the youth, like us, can participate in this movement through various means. Also, the education from the developed countries regarding the sanitation, such as the ways to build a toilet, could be another possible solution. Fast exchange of information and intellectual workings between the smart people around the world is essentially needed in order to seek out the potential terrorists and terrorist groups. And lastly, to be ready for the influx of refugees in non-visa areas, country must have a stable system designed in order for the refugees in non-visa areas. And now, the location of each federal government also highly contributes to the roles each government can take. The first slide up is the government near the war zones. The war is still ongoing, can actually take in the refugees. They can supply them with various necessities possible, and also have a conversation with the governments that are still in war and try their best to lead to a peaceful treaty under the name of coexistence. Next government is government that are near the borders, especially the borders that are around dangerous areas. They can work in cooperation to have a reinforced system to block the criminals from moving from countries to countries and prevent the diseases or epidemics, if it happened, from spreading across the regions. In terms of the inland, the industrial part of the inland can assist the countries with financial aid, and also at the same time, they have the technology and people to develop a new vaccination and good medicine for those in need. The agriculture part of inland, meanwhile, can support the refugees with new jobs, like working in the field in countries like Germany or Australia, where there are a lot of labor forces needed, and also supply them with the food provided in each region. So this is where my presentation ends, and thank you for listening.
Next presenter, Ko Eun-son. Please start if you're ready.
Poverty, starvation, discrimination, and so on. Do you think these kinds of problems are just for the developing countries and far from us? Definitely not. These days, there's more than millions of people who are suffering from the basic livelihoods. Thousands of people are suffering from malnutrition. and various kinds of discriminations happening in Korea. Not only these, there's many types of domestic problems, such as non-regular workers, youth unemployment, and aging. Since we have our own fish to fry, some people say that we should take care of the inner people first, then the outer people. Also, some people argue that the governments need to use the money only for the public. This can be a right thing. However, when we think about it, only using the money for the right thing can be a wrong place. But if we think differently, using money for the people can improve the quality of life, increase the medical services, and find a way to solve the social problems and make our more happy. This is an awesome thing when this just happens. However, this happens only if we don't think about the future. In the global society, when one country does something unethical, most of the countries criticize them. Also, if one country are into a slump, they started to give an impact to other countries, make an economical recession. Like this, we can know that Korea can become a hard time if we don't take care of the global society, because we have a hard time to establish a global position and global standard. Then what do you think we should do what do you think is a clear reason why we should help the global society? Many people say that it is a clear reason, many people say that we should help the global society since it is a duty of an advanced country and a global one city. This might be a right answer, but I want to ask you guys again. If you think like this, are you going to help everyone just because of justice, peace, and cooperation? I'm not saying that these are meaningless, but I want to say that it is hard to just help people because of these three things. Then let's think without the duty and without the abstract reasons. By helping developing the countries, what can we get? The biggest thing is the economical stability. Let's look at this briefly. Imagine there's two students called A and B. A is very clever and he has a great score. And he's a class president in school. But he's having a hard time because his food supply is unstable. In contrast, B has a large supply of groceries, however, she's having a hard time to study. In this case, A will help B to get a better score and B will supply food to him. Is this just because of friendship? Probably, but not. B will ask, by helping B study, A will ask B to supply food, and B will agree to this since she wants to get a better score. Similar situations are happening in the global society these days. Developing countries are giving a help to the developing countries, and by this, the developing countries are giving resources to the developed countries. And opposite, the developing countries are getting improved in the technologies and solving their problems in their country by giving resources. By this, we can know that Korea can also make a reliable resource supply by developing and helping the global society. Also, we can see that the power of the developing countries are becoming bigger, which means they have more people to work for the future. However, in contrast, the advanced countries are having a problem of aging and labor force, which means they have a low part in growth. So the Korea should prepare more to get more help from the developing countries. Nobody knows about the future. USA and China might fall into ruins, and we might also be behind in the developing countries. To prepare for the future and strengthen the international standard, we need to participate more in the global society. The future of Korea and the global society should be made by our participation, movement, and choices. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Next presenter, Yen Kang from Group B. Please start if you're ready.
It's a sweltering summer day in Korea. In this record-breaking heat, you have been living in a farm 10 to 11 hours a day, working non-stop. You have been living inside a vinyl greenhouse without a single air conditioning facility. You have been living with your fellow workers, but also with mold. After all this, you feel tired, you feel exhausted, you want to quit and you want to protest, but you can't. If so, your employer will fire you, and then you'll have nowhere to go. At the end of the day, your only choice is to stay. Though this might seem too unjust to be true, the story tells the truth. It is the truth of migrant workers here in Korea. It is also why I'm discussing today the social inclusion crisis, especially regarding the rejection of foreign workers and their families. Out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals suggested in 2015 as the successors to the Millennium Development Goals, the goal related to the social inclusion crisis is Goal 10, which has to do with reducing inequality in and among countries, including in age, race, and gender. In this case, the task will be to reduce racial inequality here in Korea. Going back to this crisis, as the number of foreign workers in Korea is increasing, Korea's inability to accept them into society is only growing. According to Korea Immigration Service statistics, the number of foreigners who received an employment visa just last year set a new record on a steadily increasing trend. Yet at the same time, 61.1% of Koreans living in the country's 7 largest cities found it hard to accept foreign workers as members of society, a 3.6% increase from 2013. What makes these problems worse is that they are pervasive. Aside from poor working conditions, foreigners are also subject to discrimination and policies, with the Korea Federation of Small and Medium Business even demanding that foreigners be given a lower minimum wage than that of Koreans. Schools are not an exception. According to one report by the National Human Rights Commission of Korea, 41.9% of multicultural students, the children of migrant workers here being included, have been bullied because of their Korean pronunciations. Time is passing, and more members of the Korean society are being exposed to unjustifiable violence. There are ways, however, to change this bitter reality surrounding migrant workers and their families, and in turn contribute to Goal 10. The solutions can be divided into 2 parts. 1, protecting the rights of migrant workers, and 2, correcting Koreans' attitude towards becoming a multicultural society. The first solution is to join international efforts, such as ratifying the International Convention on the Protection of All Migrant Workers and Their Families. Despite the fact that this convention promotes very basic rights, such as the rights to life and liberty, Korea has not yet ratified this convention. Doing so would firstly guarantee workers' rights that are currently being abused, and secondly serve as a benchmark to what Korea should be achieving through its annual mandatory reports. The second solution is to appropriately change the law by establishing an advisory commission that reflects the views of migrant workers. Consider the employment permit system implemented in 2004. Despite the fact that this system was implemented and revised from its predecessor to help out the conditions of migrant workers, it rather helped employers exploit them by limiting workers' movement. By establishing an advisory commission, Korea would be able to avoid implementing yet another unsuccessful alternative that only undermines workers' rights. The next part of the solutions have to do with helping the Korean public change its perspective towards becoming a multicultural society. One way of doing so is to encourage public institutions, mainly schools, in holding awareness events. Unlike in many other countries such as the United States of America or Canada, there are noticeably less multicultural events that are publicized here in Korea. If these events are held at the school level, and if these events are extended to be made available to our students, then our students will not only be able to learn about new cultures, they will also be able to learn and correct any misconceptions that they might have had about different cultures. The last and perhaps the most important solution is to naturally encourage welcoming attitudes in the public through the media. Recently, the Korean media has seen a great increase in the number of television shows that explore foreign cultures and their people, including My Neighbor Charles and Welcome First Time in Korea. The popularity of these shows clearly show that the Korean public is keenly interested in different cultures and in turn diversity. If this interest in general is used strategically to inform to the public about diversity in different cultures itself, then Korea will be on the right track of gaining a proper perspective of understanding and approaching different cultures. So why should Korea care to take these steps? In the end, the SDGs were proposed by the International Society, and the International Society is what we call more than diverse. So respecting diversity inside our own country is necessary to respecting the SDGs and any nation in the world. With the appropriate measures taken, Korea could be taking a huge step forward, not only contributing to the 17 goals, but also in transforming itself into a society where every individual is respected for who they truly are. Thank you.
The next presenter is Yedin Kim. So please start if you're ready.
I want to drink some clear water. My wish is to go to school and read books with my friends. I just want my kids to eat sufficiently. These are the messages from numerous people suffering from poverty, deforestation, and other problems in the international society, a place where we all live in together now. Well, in other words, it means that as a member of international society, we all have an obligation to be responsible with this global issue and look forward for the fruitful solutions. Thus, in 2015, UN established 17 goals to combat the poverty, inequalities, climate change, and other global problems. And these are called the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Well, before moving on to specific way on how teams could accomplish SDGs, we need to be aware of why youth are key to achieving these goals. SDGs are not for now. It's for the future. Youth have the most to win or lose whether we fulfill this goal. Thus, for ourselves, we, the teens, should first develop an awareness of this global issue and then utilize our creativeness and abilities to change our world. Actions that teens should take are not that complicated, but it is hard to put into action in a long term. As change can be made by continuous small actions, teens should shape it by their daily behaviors. Saving electricity by turning off lights, understanding the diversity of the culture, using mugs rather than paper cups, and recycling plastic and paper. Well, it might seem really small and simple to our own, but if hundreds and millions of teenagers put into action, the world will definitely change. However, as I mentioned before, it's really hard for this to last long. Thus, I considered a more creative and novel way to actually change our world. In order to make something happen, a shot of motivation and inspiration is needed. Teenagers should first find their own motivation by promoting the awareness of the magnitude of environmental pollution or other issues. For example, our school club named Farm Innovation contacted the NGO named Green Asia by themselves in order to expand their knowledge about the desertification. Fortunately, their constant efforts and curiosity made them to gain a chance to visit Mongolia and Myanmar, a place where desertification is happening seriously now. By looking at the barren gardens, school with only one class, and kids holding the buckets for water in the flesh, we felt the seriousness of the climate change, and it motivated us to actually research about desertification more deeply when we came back to Korea. Also, to let other students know, we spent a year to publish a book by sending an email to many professors and could finally publish our book in the school library. Similarly, since we had our own motivation, we could strengthen our knowledge by ourselves and we could accomplish our own goals, combating the desertification. Well, teenagers could also utilize their own advantages, such as the creativeness and the great insights. For example, our school students made a nonprofit organization named the Master Plan, and considered that we need to bring a change to the currently dominant method of one-sided assistance to the cooperative assistance. Thus, by making change, we decided to proceed the project name Two Hearts Beat as One. And here is how we proceeded this project. So first, the CSI students got a picture drawn by Tanzania kids in order to utilize as the design of the water bottle, the product that they were going to sell. Then the design team students will utilize their abilities of computer graphic designs and decorate the water bottle. Also, to promote these products, we contacted these sponsors and made the finance management and budget planning by ourselves. So after we sold these water bottles, the final profit that we gained was used to spend to the daily necessities and school utensils to the participants of this project. Similarly, teenagers should widen their vision and keep showing on interest of this global issue and reach to the fruitful solutions like these. Youth are key to accomplishing SDGs. We should be a global leader and reach our society to the success of this goal and change our world in 2030. And please be reminded that the small participation can make a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roden. The next presenter, Mr. Soo Ho-shin. Please start if you're ready.
The Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals, as we all know, that were created by the United Nations Sustainable Development Summit in the year 2015, and all 193 countries of the United Nations General Assemblies have adopted to these goals. Compared to the Millennial Development Goals that focus mainly on economical development to achieve their goals, such as eradicating extreme poverty and hunger, SDGs deal with a bit more sophisticated goals such as social maturity, environmental sustainability, and equality for all things that cannot be easily solved with the power of a dollar. However, the question here now is not what the powerhouse of the world will do, but it is more so that what can the teenagers and the young adults can do to create change, and moreover, what can South Korea do to achieve and to fulfill their role as one of the countries that established these SDGs in the first place. The expectation of achieving SDGs might be too great of an expectation to put on an average teenager, but I believe when conducted properly, teenagers have more than enough potential to actually make some noise in the international society. However, it is virtually impossible for an average teenager to miraculously change the climate of the Earth or contribute greatly to economical development or to just create jobs in our society. And I do not request any of my fellow teenagers to do any of this. This narrows the only viable SDGs that we South Korean teenagers can tackle is SDG number 4, quality education. South Korea boasts one of the world's most strictest educational curriculums of all time, and South Korean students have to go through all of this. South Korean students, what they can do is not being the ones that directly teach the vulnerable population, but being the ones that create the textbooks, the worksheets that are going to be used in the education process of these vulnerable people. South Korean students learn a variety of subjects, starting from basic English to math to more complex subjects such as economics and physics. And this variety of subjects will lead into a variety of textbooks, and this will one day lead into the quality education that will benefit the people who really need it. Also, for the students that are dreaming of a job in the field of education, they can get their hands on creating their own educational curriculum, and this, I believe, will lead into a win-win situation for both sides. Moving on, to follow the youngsters of our society, what can South Korea as a nation do? South Korea is currently one of the world's most technologically developed countries in the world and has shown brilliance in almost every single field of technology that has ever existed. This means that South Korea, if determined, can knock off almost every single SDG on that list. For example, SDG number 6, clean water and sanitation, is a SDG South Korea can heavily contribute to. According to a study done by Trading Economics, South Korea's sanitation facilities are so developed that they can burden up to 2,000% of South Korea's population. And this statistic alone shows South Korea's brilliance in technology. And I believe that if South Korea can use these technologies to their advantage, that South Korea can overcome and achieve the improbable SDGs and translate it into the near reality that we are living in. South Korea should be proud of what they have and their brilliance in technology, and it is incumbent upon themselves to distribute their technological brilliance to the whole world and help with these SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, the SDGs the leaders of the world created in the year 2015 may seem ambiguous, far-fetched, even some say impossible. But I am up here to state that these SDGs are not impossible. If every single country in the world invested in education and social maturity at the level of Costa Rica, the world would achieve 95% of its goals it set by the year 2030. Throw in technology that is developing at a pace that we have never ever witnessed before, and bang, we have the utopia that we have been dreaming of in the year 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, South Korea should acknowledge themselves as a developed country, a country that can create change. And the students of South Korea should not wait for the leaders of the world to do everything for them. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not going to be an easy ride, but I am up here to say once again, this is not impossible. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Now the next presenter, Jung-Hoon-Oh. Please start if you're ready.
When we go to sleep peacefully, eat lunch, and go to school and work, we don't notice people who suffer from war, starvation, and disease on the other side of the earth. We know we should help them. However, global participation of youth is scarce. It is not because we are selfish. The ultimate reason of this not joining phenomenon lies in a lack of information about SDGs and specific world problems. To solve this, we need youth passionate efforts and backing of the government to increase people's recognition and accessibility about SDGs and global problems. The easiest way for youth, especially teenagers, to contribute to achievement of sustainable development goals is to promote SDGs in our daily lives. We can promote this by using products with SDG marks. I carry an eco bag with 17 SDGs on it instead of a heavy backpack at school, and I explain briefly about each goal whenever my friends ask. As such, students can raise interest in world issues and encourage themselves to think about solutions through the spread of SDGs. However, it is difficult to achieve SDGs through students' personal efforts. This is because there is not enough information and accessibility to participate in SDGs-related programs or volunteer work, although people have desire to join in those kinds of activities. For example, one of the largest volunteering portal sites, U365, has very scarce international volunteer information. Also, people's participation in SDGs-related programs is low because we have to know and search about charities. So I propose United U365 volunteer program to the government. This program connects U365 with a sustainable development portal and introduces SDGs-related programs and international volunteering work run by charities. When the U365 portal involves not only in domestic volunteer opportunities, but also international, people will notice and access easily to SDGs programs and volunteer work governed by charities or SDGs-related groups. Furthermore, easier access and open data will make people participate in many activities that are related to solving global problems, such as book translation for undeveloped African regions, talent donation, global volunteering, and school supplies donation. In addition, youth, especially students, will do volunteer work more because they know that their volunteering will be marked on their school record and they'll be beneficial to them. Our pre-war generations experienced financial difficulties. However, they could rebuild Korea from other countries' helping hands. A nation's recovery depends on not only its efforts, but also other countries' recognition and interest in developing countries. That interest doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from their daily awareness of global issues. This is why promotion of SDGs is important. However, we must act together, not only just teenagers, but also the government. If Korean youth and the government put effort into promoting SDGs with internet technology, which is the strength of our country, we'll hear of people going to sleep peacefully, eating breakfast, and going to school and work on the other side of the earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jung-Hoon-Oh. Now, the next presenter, Ms. Ye-Jin Chung. Please start if you're ready.
There was a time when I didn't believe there could be a hopeful future. The world that is presented by the news seems to be constantly going in reverse. At least, it seems that way for me in the past. So, I usually tended to think to myself while watching. Do they actually know the current situation? Is it really possible to change the world? But when I saw the achievement of Millennium Development Goals, that famine rate has decreased from 36% to 12%, my thought changed, and I started to think, maybe we actually can. Maybe we actually can. One day, the leaders of the world agreed to set new goals called Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved by 2030. And I, a normal student, was impressed by their spirit and passion to make this world better. So, I began to find a way that I, too, could achieve this. While finding a way to achieve SDGs, I just realized that it might be difficult to contribute meaningfully. There were many restrictions because I'm not an adult. So, I altered the point of view to see the global problems with one question. What is the fundamental reason? And I got the answer. The answer was lack of attention. For example, people already know that we have to preserve the environment by reducing the use of plastics. However, people tend to think, if not me, maybe someone will. So the problems are getting worse. It seems to me that most of global problems could be easily settled if only people paid a little more attention. Therefore, I decided to tackle the attention problem. As I told you I'm not an adult, I attempted to use the features of Korean teenager. The answer was easy to find. Using SNS was one outstanding feature. According to Korean Mass Media Promoting Foundation, 97.8% of students use SNS. On the contrary, it was difficult to find features specific to Korea. While I was despairing over this, my friends came to me and we started to think together. Despite the fact they had many things to do, they dedicated their time to me. At the moment, an emotion that is hard to describe wrapped me. And suddenly, I came to understand Korean's defining feature. That is Korean tradition emotion called tong. Like my friends, Koreans tend to think others' business as theirs. And it's much different than materialism, and it's most similar with empathy. With this, I found a way to attract people's attention that only Korean students can do. I found that the best way to bring people's awarenesses is SNS campaign. Do you guys remember the Ice Bucket Challenge? Yes. Thank you. Ice Bucket Challenge drew people's attention during Ice Bucket Challenge, so much so that the fund for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis skyrocketed from $1.8 million to $30 million. Similar with Ice Bucket Challenge, I made an SNS campaign to achieve SDGs. This one is called Barefoot Challenge. There are 4 steps to do. The first one is state a purpose, like, I really hope to achieve SDG. And second one is pick the next target. Third one is running barefoot, and the last step is making a heart pose. If you record it and upload it into your SNS, you can participate in this campaign. It is quite simple, isn't it? Thank you. This campaign might look simple, but it has some special meanings. We can express the tongue by trying to empathize with people who do not have shoes, who daily suffer from lack of basic goods. Also, one major benefit of this campaign is that everyone can take part, regardless of wealth, education, and sexuality. This means that we can achieve an equal world, which is one component of what SDG is trying to solve. If the world pay attention to SDG by this challenge, I believe that international foundations such as UNICEF will help to achieve SDGs. Many people already participate in this campaign. Although this campaign only requires a short time to do, I believe that the time you spend will be meaningful. The girl who thought the global problem would be never solved are shouting now that it is possible with a little attention from you all. Will you join me? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ye-jin Chung. Now the next presenter, Min-se Choi. So please start if you're ready.
Few months ago, I stood in Daeangro, the heart of Korean theater, holding a megaphone in front of cameras, journalists, and hundreds of infuriated and sad eyes. I was there to give a free speech to the With You demonstration to support the Me Too movement in the Korean theater industry. After days of reading shocking news of sexual abuses inflicted by the artists I respected the most, I had to speak out no matter how afraid I was. Giving a speech was my way of changing the world of mine, the world of my family and friends, and eventually the whole world step by step. On top of all, this participation contributed, whether I intended or not, to the 5th goal of UN SDGs, gender equality. And this leads to the topic of my speech today, how Korean youth can contribute to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. An ordinary individual might hesitate to take action because of the seemingly huge scale of each goals. I mean, as a high school senior, it's almost impossible for me to suddenly come up with a new type of environmental friendly energy. However, this doesn't mean that we teenagers cannot contribute to the UN SDGs. From now on, I'll introduce 3 ways the youth can do in their daily lives to contribute, and then explain about how I follow these ways. First, don't be afraid to express your opinions and thoughts about SDGs. Speak out, express, support, encourage, and inspire people. For example, you could participate in a protest like what I did. In fact, a majority, including myself, have such experience of social participation in the winter of 2016 when 1.5 million candles gathered in Gwanghwamun. By achieving the impeachment of the corrupt President Park, South Korea progressed toward the 16th goal of SDGs, peace, justice, and strong institutions. However, it's not necessary to always do something as direct as participating at a protest. You could also express your thoughts online or through SNS and encourage your SNS friends to contribute. After all, if millions of people take one step forward, our society in a whole will improve incredibly. Secondly, look out for problems around us that are relevant to SDGs and try to correct them. Supporting SDGs are not about being a superhero and saving the world, but it's about being a bright individual. For example, last year I met this old woman in Cheongsan who lived with only $200 a month because she couldn't get the basic pension from the nation. She had 3 children who couldn't support her economically, and one of her children refused to sign the governmental form proving that he cannot support her. So she was left in the blind spot of the law without receiving any basic living securities nor a national pension. I thought this was a big issue in the national pension system, so I decided to report this through the National Petition website. Through this action, I believe we took another step toward the 10th goal of SDGs, reduced inequalities. Lastly, start from the community around you. Lend a genuine hand. It could be as personal and small as recycling, turning the water off when you're brushing your teeth, using less plastics, or taking the bus to school. Another way I strongly recommend is participate in voluntary services for public welfare. Initiate a project yourself to do what you're interested in for your community. Personally, I'm deeply interested in theater, and I've always felt that the children in Pyeongseong lack the opportunity to receive proper art education. So I decided to start an English musical theater program in a local Pyeongseong Children's Center. And once again, I could contribute to the 4th goal, quality education. Nothing's easy, but this isn't too hard. We, the youth of South Korea and the proud citizens of the global society, can contribute to the United Nations sustainable development goals in diverse ways and very easy ways. It is our moral responsibility to do so because ours can be the first generation to end poverty and the last generation to address climate change before it is too late. Thank you.
Well, that is last but not least, high school presenter, Ms. Tammy Ha. Please start if you're ready.
Hello, I'm Tammy Her from Busan International High School. Leave no one behind. This is one of the fundamental goals of United Nations and probably of the world. Today, I'm not going to be idealistic, but realistic, talking about what the youth of Korea could do to actually achieve the goal of developing as a whole. Although positive thoughts and hopes about the future is necessary, being realistic is what we need now to actually carry out our hopes and goals in our society. In 2016, United Nations established 17 goals for humanity to go forward with achieving a better future until 2030. We could question, how will we accomplish these aims? Is it actually possible to succeed in achieving these goals by 2030? Well, youth is the answer to these questions. Youth are the ones with the most potentials and the ones who are going to be leading our world in the early future. Some say that youth don't have enough power to change the world and that they're not ready yet. However, this isn't true. There are things that only youth can do that others can't. And they're the ones with the most capabilities. Focusing and maximizing these advantages of the youth, such as creativity and passion, will surely help conduct actions to develop SDGs. Let's talk realistic ally. I'm going to suggest 3 specific ways for youth to contribute to the development of SDGs. First, Korea can open an SDGs youth forum once a year, moving around each region of Korea. For a broader participation and interest, this event can be broadcasted live. There will be 17 groups of youth, 1 group for each goal of SDGs, and others will be able to participate in the activities prepared as well. In these activities, participants will share their ideas for contributing to the development of SDGs and create content such as music, dance, and short films related to each of the SDGs. This will resolve the problem of focusing on certain goals of SDGs such as poverty and will lead to a comprehensive consideration about respective goals in the SDGs. Another method is to open a contest of programming campaigns about the goals of SDGs and actually implementing the winning idea. This surely will attract creative ideas of the youth and enthusiastic participation, considering that Korean students are passionate about these kinds of contests. I had an experience in one of the campaigns in UNICEF. It was a project of collecting money for children suffering in Africa. Participants had to find sponsors themselves through explaining why they should donate money. What was special about this campaign was that sponsors had to pay for the amount of distances the participants ran in a running event, which was also a part of this campaign. I ran with my best effort to acquire as much donation money as I could from the sponsors. And in addition, because I was the one explaining why people should donate money and the situations of suffering people around the world, I clearly recognized why people should care for others. And frankly speaking, I wasn't interested in saving people. I just participated because it looks fun. However, after my participation in the campaign, I changed. And I know that others will experience the same things as me if they participate in these exciting campaigns created by the youth. In short, this contest will result in growing interest in SDGs from Korean students and later on, everyone in Korea. Lastly, the most important point that I want to emphasize during my speech is act out. Many students recognize the problems in the world and search for more information about it. However, what I want to say to these people and myself is don't just sit there. Do something, anything, act out. Of course, recognizing the problems in the world and the hardship of others is a positive phenomenon. However, if youth stop there, nothing is going to change. The same problems will remain in our society. So, take action to make change in the world, to help the world. Remember, youth are the keys to the accomplishment of SDGs. And this youth art will make Leave No One Behind possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Park. Now, the university student session will begin. The first presenter, Mr. Kyung-sik Kim from Group A. If you're ready, then please start.
Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Kyung-sik Kim, and the title of my presentation is Look Far Away. Nowadays, when we say that the development of international community is important, someone says that we need to concentrate on domestic issues first, because they think the former is not related with our own country directly, but the latter is. Then, is this a right argument, do you think? Audience, please raise up your hand if you think so. Then please raise up your hand. They are wrong. Yes, thank you. As you think, the answer is no. So please, from now on, let's see, step by step, why their insistence is wrong. There is a girl with a serious cavity. Then what is the solution for her health? It can be a medication like painkillers or dental clinic. However, do you think they are the fundamental solution for her health? No, the fundamental solution is toothbrushing. Of course, she needs some medication and dental help. However, if she depends on them without toothbrushing, all of her teeth will eventually decay. Likewise, so that is so we can understand, the real choice for her health is toothbrushing. Likewise, we must choose our worst development for our future. The reason is so clear. It's because our own country is a part of the world. What I'm saying is not to ignore our domestic issues and choose only worst development, but like not only medication and dentist help, but also toothbrushing is necessary for the girl with cavities. We also have to take care of not only our own country, but also whole the world. The best way to take care of the world's development and human beings' welfare is SDGs of United Nations. I think some of you do not agree with my opinion because some sorts of SDGs seem to have no relation with our own country. However, if you look far away, you will understand all the parts of SDGs are related with our own country and us directly and indirectly. Let's see sixth one as an example. Do you think these pictures are just a situation of other country that is not related with us? According to the book named Interesting Environment Story, the projected amount of water supply of South Korea in 2020 is 35 billion and 159 million square meters. Then what about water demand? It is 37 billion and 792 million square meters. So we can understand 2.633 billion square meters will exceed the supply. In other words, the future generation of Korea and Korea people who live now will suffer from serious water shortage. The lack of water is not just a problem of South Korea only, but USA also. If you see the graph on the screen, you will understand the projected water demand exceeds the projected water supply as time passes. So what I want to say is this. Even though nowadays the country where can use water as much as they want, like South Korea or USA, will encounter the water shortage. So we must be ready. We must prepare for the problem before it comes true. I showed you just an example, water shortage as an example because time is limited. However, if you search article, paper, or any other stuff of study, you can understand all the parts of SDGs are the solution for our own country's present and future problem. So please, do not just look in front of you. If you look far away, you can see more and you can think more wisely. And you will understand international development is same as our own country's development. So please, let's look far away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kang-sik Kim. Now the next presenter is Ms. Tanmi Kim. So Ms. Kim, if you're ready, then please start.
Good afternoon. My name is Tammy Kim, and I'm a student of University of Seoul. Every day, we give greetings such as 안녕하세요. In our daily lives, we give greetings without much thought. But in this greeting, we ask for the 안녕 of other persons. 안녕 means someone get along well without any big problems. How about you guys? 안녕하세요. Thank you. Maybe there are a lot of people who don't get along well because this is my speech subject, and that means there are many domestic issues that prevent us being well. Then, why should we actively participate in the development of the international community, despite there are so many domestic issues to solve? Before we looking at why, we need to rethink this subject. In the subject suggests that we consider domestic issue and international issue are distinct. So before we looking at why, we need to rethink the subject. The subject suggests that we consider domestic issue and international issue are distinct. In other words, the issue for international community are not ours. But is that really true? If you take a look closely, the issues facing the international community are relevant to our lives. Let me give you an example. Last year, I was in Mongolia. I worked for an NGO called Green Asia Network. This is me, Green Asia Network, for a year. And the main thing I did was to create forests. So I dug holes and I planted the trees and I watered the trees with buckets. That bucket was too heavy. So these things were for Mongolia, not for Korea, right? Because I worked with Mongolians and I lived in Mongolia. But this is also for our country. Why this is for our country? Even I located in a foreign country and I worked for external issue. In Korea, fine dust is a huge issue these days. There is even a saying that fine dust is another disaster. I heard that in the bus of Seoul. Actually, the fine dust starts in Mongolia. The sandstorms of the Gobi Desert in Mongolia carry various harmful materials to Korea via China. And as the desertification of the Mongolia is getting worse due to climate change, the sandstorms occur more frequently and more strongly. So, by creating forests, we can reduce the frequency of the sandstorm, and furthermore, we resolve our issue, find this problem. Like this, in today's globalized world, if you take a closer look at what seems to be a national problem, there are many things. that connected with other countries. It is more difficult to find the problem of only one country which is not related at all. That is why we should not distinguish domestic and international issues. It is for us to contribute to the development of the international community. In addition, there are many issues across the country through the various cultural relationships. Which means that there are many issues that are difficult to solve on the strength of only one country. And that's why we need to work together to solve the problems that the world faces in common. And this is the International Development Cooperation and the Global Partnership, which is required to achieve the SDGs. So, as the first step of global partnership, why don't you think about how international issues, which seem so far away, relate to our country? Thank you for listening to the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Chang Kim. The next presenter is Mr. Hui Young Kim. So, Mr. Kim, please start if you're ready.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hui Young Kim, and the title of my presentation is The Role of Local Governments in the Efficient Implementation of Sustainability. Currently, local governments have various administrative and infrastructural functions to promote sustainable development policies, such as supporting non-state actors, integrating governmental bodies, raising public awareness, and endorsing policies. However, local governments promote sustainable development policies quantitatively by simply increasing the number of projects and funds. However, although the numbers do matter, the efficiency depends not on the quantities, but on qualities. Therefore, I would like to suggest a 3C model which can potentially increase the policy efficiency. The 3C stands for coherence, capacity, and communication. First, policies tend to be inconsistent and are altered easily when there's a change in the administration. Therefore, local governments need to establish more coherent policy framework that is unaffected by the shift of political power. Also, local governments can develop local cities and populations' capacity towards sustainable development by educating them about the theories and practices of SDGs. Most importantly, integrated communication system can integrate fragmented governmental bodies, agencies, and organizations. At the moment, valuable time and resources are wasted on making unnecessary reports and context to dozens of agencies while organizing an event. And this could delay the project planning and cause unwanted turmoil between organizations. As communication is a key factor to the fourth industrial revolution, and that's what I call a blackout, but anyhow, as the communication is a key factor to the fourth industrial revolution, it is critical that the communication is integrated with the e-governance to reduce bureaucratic flaws and increase the policy efficiency. Now, I'd like to mention a few specific action plans. Local governments can establish SD promoting bodies. For example, regional center of expertise, which are designated by the United Nations University, support local cities and populations to strategize and implement SDGs. Therefore, their partnership with the local governments can maximize policy effects. Another way is to increase youth capacity and participation through programs such as SDG summer camps and internship programs. For instance, Incheon City funds internship programs for college students to have premature and hands-on experiences at international organizations such as UNPOG and UNOSD. As these organizations do not provide stable income and require higher education, these subsidies can substantially increase youth practical engagement to the SDGs. Lastly, governments can make direct investments to the startup companies that aim to promote sustainable development in developing countries. By doing so, local governments can contribute to both domestic economy and international development. But the question is, why should local governments get involved in international development? This dilemma exemplifies a sharp confrontation between the ideas of realism and liberalism. However, we are already witnessing the consequences for disregarding sustainability. Most noticeably, the effects of global climate change is already causing tremendous amount of damage to the entire humanity. Therefore, governments need to participate into international development to prevent and reduce the adverse effects. To conclude, international development is not just about helping others, but it's about advancing humans' capacity. And that's why the roles of local government is so vital, imperative, and essential. If we manage to increase the efficiency of policies, then we'll be also able to increase our own capabilities towards our own well-being and survival. Ultimately, we can also actualize the very core value of the SDGs, leaving no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hee. Now, the next presenter is Mr. Sung-min Park. So please start if you are ready.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sung-min Park, and I'm very honored to give a speech about denuclearization and the roles of local governments. The tragedy happened in Chernobyl painfully affected its people and shocked the international community. This is what the former Russian President Gorbachev quoted about the nuclear explosion happened in Chernobyl. Some people say that nuclear energy is safe and clean as long as it runs stable. But if there are unexpected variables, nuclear explosion can happen at any period of time. And the real problem is, no one knows when the variables would appear. So denuclearization is important to prevent unexpected and unintended nuclear explosion and disaster. There are three problems in Korea in terms of nuclear energy: possibility of nuclear explosion, deterioration of nuclear plants, and nuclear waste. Any of these are possible enough to make total destruction to the environment. And once the environment destroyed and get disaster happen, it goes strongly against SDGs in terms of well-being, clean energy, climate action, and life on land. And to prevent all these problems, denuclearization is necessary, although it may cost some money economically. What we are seeing on the slide is the aftermath of nuclear explosion happened in Fukushima. We can see that almost the entire Pacific Ocean is covered with radiation, and not to mention, the environment was severely damaged. But denuclearization is not an easy task. So Korea needs to cooperate with local governments, and what can they do about this situation? Of many roles of local governments, there are three roles that they need to take actions with. And the three roles are gradual change of energy sources, persuading the local people, and giving education program about the related subject. All these can be successfully done when the local governments apply these properly on their people. And to start with, gradual change of energy sources. Let's think about the electric vehicle as an example at first. A few years ago in Korea, electric vehicles were not popular or not prevalent, and not many people used them. But after giving some economic advantages, such as tax cut, people have started to use it. And people found the price pretty much reasonable. As a result, the distribution rate and the usage of electric cars has increased notably than ever before in Korea. In that way, we can encourage people to use green energy by giving them economic incentives. If we give incentives to these people, people can use green energy with cheap price, and most of them will not try to use nuclear energy. In that way, people will find nuclear energy not pretty much necessary. And that will make the government to make it easier to pursue the policy for denuclearization. Second, persuading the local people. As the administrator, it is the job and responsibility of local governments to persuade their people of the righteousness of pursuing the policy of denuclearization. To persuade the opponents, the government should mention and talk about the long-term costs. For example, unlike most people believe, nuclear energy is not always cheap. But when we think about the cost for taking care of nuclear waste and possibility of nuclear explosion, green energy is more efficient in long-term perspective. And safer environment and inevitability for developed countries to denuclearize are another points of persuasion too. Lastly, about educational program. The governments can raise people's awareness of the danger of nuclear energy by giving proper education opportunity. And this can be done through school education, debating forum, and continuous public advertisement. And once this happens, people will get aware of the danger and give spontaneous support to the government when they try to do the denuclearization. This can be done when the government provides them with proper education opportunity and they need to support with them. This is my end of my presentation, hoping Korea to pursue a sustainable society. Local governments and their people supposed to cooperate for denuclearization. And this can be done, but there could be some temporary economic setback, but we have to remember that this is one step backward, but 10 steps forward to the true sustainable society. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Sungmin Park. The next presenter is Mr. Hae-chan Jang. So, Mr. Jang, please start if you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Hae-chan Jang from the Gyeongsang National University. The title is Activating ESD Platforms. In response to the United Nations Decade of Education for Sustainable Development, the UN University called for the development of the regional networks for the development for the promotion of the ESD and SDGs. This was the birth of the RCE. RCE, the Regional Center of Expertise on ESD, aspires to achieve the goals of the DESD by translating global objectives into the context of the local communities in which they operate. And then this is accomplished by acting as a catalyst for the promotion of the ESD and by providing suitable platforms to share information and experiences and to promote dialogue among regional stakeholders through partnerships for ESD. In Korea, Incheon, Inje, Ulju, Changwon, and Tongyeong are selected as RC cities, and each RC city provides unique opportunity to promote ESD. RC Tongyeong is the most active RC city among those 5 cities, and the Bridge to the World is the most representative program in RC Tongyeong. It's a youth program to empower youth to implement the SDGs at youth level. Students who have common interests gather and make teams and look for local problems and its solutions too. And they even visit some institutions related to their goals and interview some influential figures to get professional advice, like this. And apart from the Bridge to the World, various programs for various generations have implemented for achieving SDGs. There's a boy who is eager to change the world and make a better world, but had no knowledge about the SDGs. So he needed somebody to tell what actions should he take. But one day, he got to know the RC Tongyeong, and he has participated in almost every ESD programs, including Bridge to the World. Last year, he was just a participant of the Bridge to the World, but this year now he was working as a Bridge to the World coordinator who teach SDGs to high school and middle school students. The RC Tongyang is the perfect platform for that boy, and that boy is me. RC Tongyang raised my potential. I will change the world, and I believe in myself. I believe the RC Tongyang and other RC platforms will raise the positive future who have same dream like me. Unfortunately, the other 4 RCs management level is far behind the RC Tongyang, and the amount and quality of the program is significantly poor. So the local governments should build or activate these local communities like RCE, where the people, adults, students, or children can realize or raise their potential. And sorry. And after programs such as Bridge to the World are conducted in RC cities and local platforms, people will gather and make networks to share their experiences and informations and to make synergy, and as a human always do, to reach to the next level. For success of this, I call for activating SDGs platforms for achieving ESD. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ha-chan Chang. The next presenter is Ms. Eun-jin Cho. So please start when you're ready.
Today, I would like to talk about why and how local governments should act to achieve the SDGs. I will give a speech in this order. First, why local governments should act. In South Korea, discussion on distributing more power of the central government to local has been continued. And it seems that local governments' legislative, administrative, and financial power will be strengthened gradually. With this kind of political reform, the role of local governments for contributing to achieve the SDGs is also needed to be changed. Second, action plans. I would like to emphasize governance in local government's action plan. Kofi Annan said good governance is perhaps the single most important factor in eradicating poverty and promoting development. Governance is not just a 16th goal, but a means for SDGs implementation. It can be seen in figure 1, 2, 3. Let's look at this first. The higher the perceived levels of corruption among public officers, the higher the GDP. This shows that property right index is proportional to GDP. And the relation between democracy and market economy is also. As you see, governance is the catalyst for development. This is why governance reform is regarded as a cross-cutting issue. I would like to suggest the governance reforming process. Step 1. Local governance must be kept well in our nation first. Because the rise in local government's participation in our ODA structure can be further intensified in our ODA structure. Fragmentation might cause mid-transaction cost, speculation, and project overlaps, reducing aid effectiveness. After local governance is established, the local should help other local governments in developing countries to keep them also. With good governance, each local can be a main actor and perform its functions, such as reducing poverty, managing public goods, and keeping peace. SDGs can be achieved when every local governance works well. Secondly, local governments should promote ODA-linked city policy. That is, suggest the way each province develop their locally specialized industries. For example, Gangwon province, which is famous for agriculture, has been conducting farm village development project since setting up a sisterhood relationship with Kyubdo, Mongolia. And the province is also runs the agriculture officer training program. This is the really desirable role of local government to achieve the SDGs. Other local governments can also do this enough. What matters is that its application should reflect different political, cultural, and social differences. Without modernization and localization, significant results can never be made. Last but not least, I would like to talk about local government's roles in achieving SDGs. In Korea adopts a 5-year single presidential system. Depending on this reason, Korean audio project has been changed every 5 years. On the other hand, the head of local governments can run more stabilized and long-term projects for up to 12 years. Secondly, local governments can make citizens to contribute to achieve the SDGs because it has an advocating effect. To conduct an audio-related policy and spend budget on it, the local government should persuade citizens and explain why they should do. If the local government complete this uneasy task well, the public attention on SDGs will be aroused. And it must be encouraging citizens to act for SDGs in more active position. Hoping for better words, I conclude my speech. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Injin Cho. The next presenter is Ms. Yumi Ha.
Good afternoon. First, I'm very glad to stay here and give my presentation. The title of my presentation is In a Different Perspective. SDGs are the global co-promoting targets adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2015. It is comprised of following main 17 objectives and 169 detailed goals with a slot called Leave No One Behind. These 17 main goals actually can be divided into 3 main categories, which is the universal problem of mankind, the global environmental problem, and the economic and social problem. While thinking how to lead this presentation, I've decided to suggest the plan of the goal that encounter around us in each of the groups above. So first, the universal problem of mankind. As you see in the screen right now, there are 58 million children living under 58 million children who are not able to receive education nowadays. Not only that, 100 million children are not able to enter the primary education. Those common children who are not able to receive education carry heavy stone instead of carrying bag and learn like the others. Government should first create a school for the children in a situation of forced labor. Not only that, government should support them with the basic livelihoods so that they can be educated with no worries. Another thing is that government can provide a chance for the parents of the children to perceive the importance of appropriate and well-timed education. Second is the global environmental problem. As you see, actually in this world, there are 7.6 billion people living in this world. However, they say that 840 million people are not access to safe drinking water. In other words, 1.5 out of 10 people are suffering from water diseases. Government should install awareness of clean water in its residents and also give an education of drinking water management. Not only that, they should start supporting the improvement in They should start supporting the improvement in installation of water facility system and also water sewer system in order to solve the fundamental problem of polluted water. As an extra idea, government can provide live straw or provide water purifier until all of these things are implemented. Third is the economic and social problem. Since entering the fourth industry, robot and AI have replaced our seat. This caused numerous number of homeless people and kangaroo tribe. The role of local government on this issue is to overcome reduced jobs due to the fourth industry through the fourth industry. Let me give an example. As time flies, robot will have impact on human life. This will eventually make an outcome of jobs which makes interfaces between robot and human. In other words, government should make a job which happens as human being develop. Not only that, government as of now can provide jobs by discovering the local characteristic and make it be specialized. Second question is the reason for active participation in international development, nevertheless there are domestic pending issues to solve. I can give two reasons for this. First, because the world is like a puzzle. Does a piece of puzzle, when it is in the right place, can finish all the work? No. When all the pieces gather together, a beautiful piece of work is completed. Same like this, world is like a puzzle. All the countries have to get together in order to make a wonderful piece of work. In other words, we have to not top ones above. It is just like a puzzle placed in the right place. We have to gather together. Not only that, as a second reason, contributing to the international community is not a voluntary work. Why is it? Have you ever heard about the butterfly effect? It is actually a phenomenon in which the results are completely changed by a minute difference in initial value. It is a theory derived from a story when a tiny butterfly's wing flap in Brazil caused a tornado in Texas. Are we not responsible for all the things happening in the world outside of the world? No. Waste we throw away, electricity we use, disposable cup held in your hand right now. Small benefits that encounter our daily life become world issue, like the butterfly effect. It is not the voluntary work, it is our responsibility. I actually want you to remember the title of my presentation, in a different perspective. Let's look at our domestic issues in a different perspective. As a puzzle, as a responsibility. When all of us unite with this mindset, I am sure the 17 goals from SDGs will come true. Let's be the protagonists to lead the time of the world. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Hao and the supporters. And now the next presenter is Ms. Kyu-min Lee. So please start if you're ready.
Good afternoon. I'm going to present A Journey to Being Green, Green Consumption and Citizenship. And during the presentation, I'd like to focus on the goals 7, 12, and 13 of the Sustainable Development Goals as marked on the slide. Now, to begin with, I'd like to ask you one question. How many of you use mugs or tumblers while drinking coffee? Could you please raise your hands if you do? Oh, thank you. Quite a lot. Yeah, now the new bill was passed, so we have to use mugs inside the cafe. But anyway, if you've raised your hands, then you're in the 14% of post-materialists living in Korea. Congratulations. Yeah. Interestingly, most of the countries, developed countries such as Japan, the United States, and EU nations have approximately 50% of materialists and another half of post-materialists. Here, materialists are those who make a point of economic development, national security, and social order. On the other hand, post-materialists are those who pursue environmental protection, sustainable development, and open, embracing attitude toward diversity. Only 14% of Korean people are the post-materialists. Sad, right? So, as the Korean peninsula has experienced rapid and compressive growth for 40 years, people's values cannot follow the material advancement, but rather stayed where they have been. Therefore, what an unfortunate conclusion, but in a sociological view, it seems quite difficult to encourage those 86% to actively participate in realizing the SDGs. However, it's not yet that tragic. The youth, especially the 20s, are the rising consuming subjects who are willing to show their own value by consumption. Why does it matter? Let's see. They love to buy a variety of cosmetic products, clothes, and accessories, for instance. In addition, they like to eat out and post dinner pictures on their SNS. They are also very sensitive to changes and fashion. As the current social trend is changing toward considering our environment more, the 20s tend to conduct social consumption or belief consumption, which means that they want to be seen as the environment protectors. It's a good thing that they have potential, right? So rather than reducing consumption or not buying things at all, which is quite impossible to do, of course, consuming greenly can be a good first step toward the youth engagement in the SDGs. The leading examples of green companies are Lush or Innisfree in cosmetics, and Tom's and Beautiful Store in clothes industry. Lush, to illustrate more, uses eco-friendly raw materials and conducts a lot of campaigns to prevent resource depletion. Trying a vegetarian diet can also be one of the good action plans. Here are some of the list. Ta-da! Looks easy, right? So, if it is difficult to stand disturbance, let's say the minus, then how about pursuing the plus while consuming green products and building your healthy identity? Of course, in the long-term perspective, the government and businesses should endeavor to inspire citizens to be the green consumers and at the same time, one of the post-materialists. Usually, civil organizations are the main subjects of protecting environment in most of the countries. However, Korean civil society still keeps passive attitude. In this situation, the government's long-term policy toward green citizenship and youth participation to this movement are essential. To sum up, in the short period, the government's long-term policy is important. Well, I'm sorry, vice versa. In the short period, the youth should be the leading green consumers doing social consumption. But in the longer term, youth participation is essential based on the government's implementation. I do hope that this beautiful living place will sustain and thrive as the Korean youth all engage in the journey of being green. Thank you.
Next presenter is Mr. Min Hyuk Hong. So Mr. Hong, please start if you're ready.
Hello, my name is Min Hyuk Kang, and I will be presenting my presentation on what I believe to be the ROK's role in achieving the SDGs. So without further ado, I would like to begin. Surrounded by nations such as Japan, China, and Russia, the Republic of Korea was traditionally known as a shrimp amongst whales. Although this may have been true in the past, in contemporary society, it could not be farther from it. Over the past 60 years, the Republic of Korea has achieved a significant amount of growth in all three pillars of sustainable development. In regards to the social level, the Republic of Korea has recently achieved a democratic miracle through its candlelight protests, thereby becoming a country that epitomizes the liberal values of the United Nations. On the economic level, the Republic of Korea is currently a G10 nation with the potential to soon become a G10 nation. G11 nation with the potential to become a G10 nation. On the environmental level, the Republic of Korea was assessed to be a country that has embraced green growth on a scale and speed never seen elsewhere before, and is currently leading international organizations such as the Green Climate Fund, as well as the Global Green Growth Institute. However, many nations have been unable to follow the comprehensive development of South Korea, as there are still many nations in the world that still suffer from absolute poverty, as well as basic human rights violations. In response to this, the international society has institutionalized something known as the Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17 goals that seek to comprehensively improve the quality of life in both developing and developed countries. However, according to experts on sustainable development, such as Jeffrey Sachs, the international society's inability to achieve aid effectiveness is currently hindering its ability to achieve such goals. In regards to this, many professionals blame the fragmentation that exists between OECD DAC member states, such as the United States, and newly industrialized countries such as China. This is because discrepancies in geopolitical ideology and stance have severely hindered development cooperation efforts between the two entities, and this is especially true in regards to the information sharing that is needed in order to harmonize development projects and policies. Consequently, much finance is wasted on repetitive processes as well as overlapping projects. As there is already a $1.3 trillion deficit in development financing, it is evident that a nation that is capable of bridging this divide is truly needed in the international society. Being both an OECD DAC member state as well as a former newly industrialized country, this is a role only the ROK can fulfill. This is because the knowledge and expertise derived from these experiences has enabled the ROK to become a driving force in setting the international development agenda, and this was proven through its contribution to the 4th High-Level Forum on Aid Effectiveness held in Busan. For this reason, it was stated in the 2030 agenda, it was stated in the OECD 2018 peer review of the ROK that Korea's advocacy for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is truly valued by its partners and has enabled it to play a central role in international negotiations. In order to fulfill this role, the Republic of Korea must strive to continuously facilitate international dialogue as an impartial mediator through hosting various conferences. Currently, this is only occurring on the regional level, as the ROK is the first and the most recent host to the Northeast Asian Development Cooperation Forum. Through this platform, the Republic of Korea has played a significant role in mediating cooperation between traditional donors such as Japan and new emerging donors such as China and Russia. And through this, Northeast Asia has begun policy dialogue and has reached agreements on all 3 phases of development projects. Accordingly, it is my argument that such regional dialogues must be expanded to the international level in a manner that enables OECD DAC member states to engage in dialogue with newly industrialized countries. Through this, the international society can augment developmental harmonization, which will thereby augment the international society's financial ability to efficiently and effectively achieve the SDGs. All in all, it's very clear that the new paradigm of the Sustainable Development Goals possesses much potential. However, it is also full of many challenges, as the cooperation gap between OECD DAC member states and new emerging donors is severely limiting development effectiveness. As the ROK is the only nation with the ability to bridge this divide, it's clear that it must play a role in ensuring that international development cooperation is truly based off international cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jae-won Hwang. And the next presenter is the last presenter of today. Her name is Jae-won Hwang. So Ms. Hwang, please begin if you're ready.
Okay, as the last speaker, I will talk about a single key to achieve the SDGs, which I believe is the environmental restoration. Okay, as we all know, all 17 Sustainable Development Goals are important, right? And you might think that trying to achieve every single goal through a single action is near impossible, simply because there are so many of them. However, if we get to categorize the goals and analyze the characteristics, we can easily see that most of them point at the same thing. Apparently, these goals say that environmental restoration is important, but even the other goals, including responsible consumption and production, or even decent work and economic growth, can also point to the importance of environmental restoration and development of renewable energy. So I say that environmental restoration is important, but many of you sitting here might be thinking to yourselves that environmental pollution has been the important issue for over 2 decades now, and nothing has really changed, right? And we have also seen that simply scolding the public did not help anything in saving the environment. So are we going to give up now? Of course not, because I'm going to introduce 2 ways that we can save the environment in relation to the economic trend today. And those 2 keys to doing so are 4th Industrial Revolution and green infrastructure. So I'll firstly explain about the 4th Industrial Revolution. 4th Industrial Revolution is a key to creating a symbiotic relationship between private enterprise and capitalism while solving social problems such as economic inequality or climate change, which are also from the SDGs. And by hopping on to this economic trend of 4th Industrial Revolution, I believe that we can contribute highly to saving the environment. And let's see how we can do so in detail. Firstly, the companies can try to extend the product life. And by doing so, we can save lots of resources. And by selling stuff and providing good after service with charge, the companies can earn profits while saving the resources as well. And the second way is to lend instead of selling stuff.
What people want is not the light bulb itself, but the light service, right? So there are many of the light equipment companies that actually lend light fixtures and earn from the usage fees, earn profit through the usage fees. And the third way is by creating a sharing economy, thereby creating lots of renewable and sustainable products. There are many stuff that people buy and use only once or twice to throw them away. So we're going to reduce that highly by creating a sharing economy. And also, sharing economy can create sharing platforms which can provide new jobs to the society as well. Now I'll move on to the second key, which is the green infrastructure. Here I'm going to ask 3 questions. The first question, what is green infrastructure? Green infrastructure is a broad emerging technologies which can help restore water quality and ecosystem health, while looking for an attractive alternative to conventional technologies. And the examples of this are, as you can see from the slide. And the next question I want to ask, why do we need this? We need this because this can promise the water quality and ecosystem health, while that creates low energy costs and has low maintenance costs, while creating local jobs as well. And the last question we need to ask, which is the most important question, what do we need to do with this concept? So what do we need to do with this concept of green infrastructure and fourth industrial revolution as a whole? I believe that these are the concepts that are already popular in many of the advanced nations, and it is already incorporated in the public education curriculum. But in South Korea, ladies and gentlemen, it's not yet the part of the public education, so many of the students have no chance at all to learn about these stuff while they're in the young generation or while they're in their teenage. Therefore, even though they go to the college, they have no chance to learn about this at all if their major is not related to natural science or environmental science. But we need to educate these young generation because I believe that familiarizing these young generation with these important concepts that will help us save the environment and the economy at the same time is really important at this stage, at this right moment. Of course, there are many ways to educate these students, such as using SNS or creating contests like this so we could give speeches on these topics. But I believe that incorporating this into the public education curriculum is the most direct way at this stage. So I believe that we should try all to cooperate and create new education curriculums and have these topics introduced to the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chewon-Kang. And this was the last presentation of today. And before we go for the break, let's give a big hand to our university student presenters. So now the judges will give us their feedback on today's presentation. The judges, due to limited time, I'd like to ask you to kindly give us 2 minutes feedback per person at the maximum. So as Professor Chris has to leave early, I'd like to ask his comment first.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's just been a total pleasure to be a part of today's event. And I want to thank all the students here, the high school students, the college students, for excellent presentations, really, all around. It's a very energizing experience to realize that there's a lot of talent here and a lot of dedication to thinking about the world's toughest issues. And so I wish everybody would join me in a round of applause for I've certainly learned a lot. The only comment I guess to make is one of just as somebody who's been in my career paying a lot of attention to global issues for the past 35 or 40 years. One thing that's sort of sadly obvious is that a lot of the issues you're talking about today are issues that have been with us, as some of you pointed out, for many decades. And the fact is they will continue to be issues that vex the world and require the talents of the people in this room to think about them and to speak about them and to write about them. You know, public speaking is, it's like writing, is one of those skills that takes a lifetime to develop. I'm well into my 50s and still trying to improve my writing and my public speaking. And you do that by continuing to engage with the materials and engage with the issues around you. That's what I found very exciting about today's work, is that it's clear that you've started that process. And my only words of wisdom are, I hope that this won't be the last time that you engage with these issues, because as I say, they will be around for a long time. We continue to learn how to, what are the problems in the world and how they're caused. And your ability to persuade and learn how to communicate effectively, that's really what's key. Knowledge, knowing what the issues are about is one thing, but developing your skills to tell people, to educate people, and to persuade them that change has to happen, that's really the effective recipe for mobilizing the world to solve issues in the future. So I really appreciate that effort. I don't have any other great advice to add, but again, congratulations.
I'd like to ask Mr. Unjoko for his comments.
Since Professor Chris gave you a very long comment, I'll give you a short comment, because I think most of you who did a presentation today wants to hear about the results as soon as possible. I was personally surprised that our young generations, including my daughter, who is now a middle school student, did have lots of opportunities to learn English compared to my generation. It's a good thing. So I hope you will have a much greater future than my generation. And my final comments for you is that there may be some competitors who are not very satisfied with their performance today, but I want to give you advice, because you made already developments once just by participating in this competition today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Ms. Sarah Castro-Helgren from UNPOC.
Thank you very much for being here today. I really want to commend all of you, not just the ones who participated as speakers and presenters and in the competition today, but the ones who actually just came to listen and to learn. It's our second year doing this, and every single time that we do it, or that we have the opportunity to engage with youth of Korea, it's really impressive. And I personally can attest to having learned a lot again in this year's competition. So we have really had the pleasure of enjoying your company here today. But I really want to say that you showed a lot of leadership and a lot of impressive qualities that really show how Korean youth embodies the SDG fulfillment already. So this generation, I think, really shows us that Korea has so much more bright years ahead and so much more to achieve for the SDGs, not just in the country, but also around the world through its partnerships and its engagement and development cooperation with countries abroad. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to hearing the results.
I'd like to ask Mr. Jung Choi from World Bank Korea to give us comment.
Hi, I'm Jung from the World Bank. We're just across from the street. I also want to echo Sarah's point that I was really impressed with the overall qualities that I experienced today. Being Korean myself, being educated in Korea, I know that most Korean students have very little chance to speak in public. You never really get to nurture that skill growing up. So even more so, I'm very impressed. I'm personally curious how you practiced, whether this was in fact done at private hagwon or at home. I hope it's not the former. And I must also say that I'm very grateful to you, UNPOC, for organizing this. Because SDG is a seemingly an easy topic, but once you dig into this, it's quite a complicated topic. And therefore, it's not very easy to communicate with the public at large. So I'm very impressed, as I said. Lastly, I'd like to just mention that perhaps going forward, the title of this should be changed to presentation contest, because PowerPoint is an indispensable part of public speaking these days. I don't know why we should stick to the old-fashioned speech contest, right? So in that respect, speech is not only speech, public speaking. It's about how you present yourself. your thoughts and ideas. So I hope that you're more cognizant of how you present your unique thoughts and creative ideas, just beyond speaking about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chong. And I'd like to ask to Mr. George Zedeginite from GCF, please.
This was excellent. I'm really amazed by the fact that you guys put so much time in preparing for this presentation. I think presentation comes naturally when you feel comfortable with the topic. And I was really amazed how much research you had conducted to present those slides and your ideas. I found the last bits of your presentations particularly interesting and amazing, where you came up with your own solutions, and also coming from GCF, where we spend a lot of time about also thinking about solutions, how to address some of the SDGs and global issues. I thought that was fascinating, and I look forward to hearing the results. Congratulations once again. Thank you.
Last but not least, I'd like to ask to Mr. Gradual from Incheon Metropolitan City, please.
I think you can see we all agree that everyone thought you did a very, very good job. And I'm not going to repeat what everyone said. I'm going to say a couple of things that are a bit more specific. One thing I'll notice, I'm a teacher. I have students doing presentations every semester, all the time. And what you did really, really well, and I think across the board, everyone did this, was you stuck to the time. And I have such a hard time getting my students in my classes to stick to, you're told 5 minutes, not 10 minutes, not 8 minutes, it's supposed to be 5 minutes. And to a person, you all were within that 5 minutes. And that's impressive to me. And I think that's really, really good. So I want to say that specifically to everybody. You should feel proud about that. A second thing that I'll say specifically also is that almost everybody spoke a little bit too quickly. And that's hard because you're on stage. I'm doing it right now. I'm rushing through this because I feel nervous. So, take a moment, take a breath. When you do this again, and I really, really hope you will all do this again somewhere, somehow, remember that, okay, I did this before, I can do this, I'm not gonna die. I'll get on stage, I'll slow down, I'll take a breath. So remember, try to do that in the future. Slow down, take a moment and breathe, and then talk. Not everybody, but I mean most people spoke a little bit too quickly, you got nervous. And I don't know if you had the chance, but I hope you took a moment to watch the other presenters. And this is what I do all the time. I watch other people and I steal stuff. Wow, that was good, I'm gonna do that. And don't be afraid to do that in the future. Think about it, because everyone here did a really good job. There are things that you can look and say, I'm gonna copy what she did. I'm gonna copy what he did. And then later on, again, when you do this again, and I hope you will do this again, think about what other students did and how good it was, all right? Great job. I was so happy to be here again this year, and I hope I'll get to come back again and watch your juniors and so on next year. Thank you.
So I just got the result, but I'm not going to show you right now. So now the award ceremony will follow, starting from high school group, university group, and grand prizes. The second prize of the second Unpo contest for Group A for a high school is presented to Ms. Go Eun-son, and the prize is presented by the Ambassador Sangjin Park. Thank you. Ms. Song-gun, I think you can stop that. And next, the second prize of the second Unpo contest for Group B for a high school is presented to Ms. Yerin Kim, and the prize is presented by Ambassador Sangjin Park. Congratulations. The first prize of the second Unpo contest for Group A is presented to Ms. Yu Jung-an, and the prize is presented by the ambassadors Hangjin Park. Congratulations. The first prize of the second Unpo contest for Group B is presented to Ms. Minso Choi, and the prize is presented by Ambassador Hangjin Park. Congratulations. Please give them a round of big hands, please. Now is the university students' results. The first and the second prize for university students from Group A and Group B will be announced. For Group A, second prize goes to Ms. Yumi Ho. For Group A, the first prize goes to Ms. Chanmi Kim. For Group B, the second prize goes to Ms. Hwang Jae-won. The first prize goes to Ms. Lee Kyu-min. Congratulations. So the prize will be presented by Mr. Jae-geun Chung, Head of Unpok, on behalf of Ministry of the Interior and Safety and Minister of the Ministry of Environment. So the second prize of the second Unpok contest for Group A is presented to Ms. Ho Yu-mi. The prize is presented by Mr. Jae-geun Chung, Head of Unpok, on behalf of the Minister of the Ministry of the Interior and Safety. So the prize is 100,000 Korean won. Congratulations. The second prize of the second Unhwa contest for Group B is presented to Ms. Hwang Jae-won, and the prize is presented by Mr. Jae-geun Chung, Head of Unpok, on behalf of the Minister of the Ministry of Environment. And the prize is 100,000 won. Congratulations. The first prize of the second Unpok contest for Group A is presented to Ms. Kim Chang-mi. And the prize is presented by Mr. Jae-geun Chung, Head of Unpok, on behalf of the Minister of the Ministry of the Interior and Safety. And the prize is 200,000 won. Congratulations. Per contest for Group B is presented to Ms. Lee Kyu-min, and the prize is presented by Mr. Jae-geun Chung, Head of Unpok, on behalf of the Ministry of Environment. Congratulations. So we'll take a congratulations. And the winners. Yes, winners, please go back to your set. Now, the grand prize winners will be announced. The grand prize of the second Unpo contest for Group A is awarded to Mr. Park Sung-min, and the prize is presented by Mr. Jae-geun Chung, Head of Unpo, on behalf of the Minister of the Ministry of the Interior and Safety. Congratulations. The grand prize prize of the second Unpok contest for Group B is awarded to Ms. Kang Ye-eun. The prize is presented by Mr. Tae-geun Jung, Head of Unpok, on behalf of the Minister of the Ministry of Environment. Congratulations. So, congratulations, and students, you can be seated.
Have you enjoyed? Yes! Thank you. I'm happy for hearing from you. Okay. Congratulations to all of you on your passion, hard work, and creativity. Your valuable contributions and active participation made this event a wonderful success and resounding success. Thank you again. I was personally very impressed by quality of speeches we heard this afternoon. In particular, a wide variety of your perspectives on the complex issue of sustainable development. As you know, the 2030 agenda is currently being implemented. More importantly, your generation will be the flag bearers for our planet toward 2030 and beyond. Throughout the spirit you have demonstrated and innovative ideas we have shared today, I found out that our planet's future has much hope. First thing I'd like to say is thank you to today's judges for contributing your time and energy. Thank you very much again. And let me offer my congratulations to our winners. You all have done very well, comparing your ages, and I'm very much proud of you. However, the winners, actually, you, all of us, here at the last minute. Why don't you give big hand to ourselves? This upcoming October, Unpok is supposed to organize a very meaningful international symposium. From 40 countries, high-level decision makers will participate in the symposium. I want the winners today will be there for our heartfelt invitation and has a great chance to share your ideas, passions, enthusiasm, and spirits. That symposiums. Finally, always I say like this about VIPs. Have you heard the word VIPs? VIPs, yeah? It means very important persons. But now, I want to redefine VIPs. Very important person for something valuable, like Sustainable Development Goals implementation. So, we are here to commit ourselves to achieving Sustainable Development Goals for our future. So, it means we all VIPs, because we are very important person for something valuable. So, as you stepped out of this space to return to your school, I wish you all keep this word in your mind. We are all VIPs. We are all VIPs for our future, for our planet. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Now I'd like to invite all the presenters also join to the stage for a group photo, please.